Welcome back to Mystara for a long overdue video looking at the Court of the Golden Khan, one of the more elaborate and in-depth write-ups on royal goings-on. It's a mobile capital city with all sorts of intrigue, politicking, and backstabbing, from ancient rivalries, security risks, and one guy stirring up trouble just for kicks. The Golden Court got a write-up that put every other gazetteer to shame. So what are the players in for when they finally reach Mowgli Khan's tent? They're going to find out it's not about the arrival, but the journey. Getting there alive is its own reward. I'm Mr. Welch, and court's in session. The court is effectively a large mobile city traveling around Ethengar at specific times. The population varies significantly from season to season as the number of clans visiting drops off in warmer months and flocks to the court during the winter. During the summer, you can find it in the wetlands known as Chagam Na, where it collects the gold panned from the various rivers and streams. During the spring and autumn, people can find it near Lake Talkai, where the herds can thrive on grasses that grow in the depression known as the Sea of Flowers. In the winter, it moves to the sacred hill known as Barga, where a prophetic dream told Mowgli Khan to stay when the weather turns cold. It is now marked by a ring of exotic trees that the Khan has planted to grace his court. Despite the trees being from all over the known world, they somehow thrive in the steppes. This is a testament to the power of the shamans and clerics of the Ethengar. You will smell the court long before you see it. Surrounding the mobile city in all directions for miles are the herds of cattle and horses that accompany the great Khan. Hundreds of animals for miles will be tended to by members of the Merkit tribe. All of these animals are property of the Great Khan. Rustling or horse theft is punishable by death. Riding through these herds are the Keshak patrols. These guards intercept anyone who approaches the court and will escort them to the outskirts so they can be investigated and their motives ascertained. It doesn't matter if you weren't going there in the first place. Anyone who approached the court is treated with suspicion by the Keshaks. They won't tell you where they are taking you. They surround the visitor and motion in the direction to go. Starting a fight with the patrol is a bad idea, as there are thousands of horse warriors in the area, and they will ride down any threat without mercy. The one thing the party will notice when they arrive at the court is the lack of any permanent structures, and the overwhelming smell. The two things the party will see when they arrive at the court are the lack of permanent structures and the smell, and the fact that all Ethengar are staring at them. The three things the parties will notice upon arriving at the court are the lack of permanent structures, the overwhelming smell, and that all the locals are watching them, and the magically perfect weather over the Great Khan's tent. Among the many things the party will notice when they arrive at the court of the Golden Khan are no permanent structures, a smell that can gag a troll, everyone is staring at them, and it doesn't rain on the Golden Khan. As befitting a nomadic culture, there are no buildings here. Everyone stays in a yurt or a wagon, and all the livestock are kept in temporary pens. Some of the yurts are enormous. These will be businesses of some sort, unless they're in the stockade that surround the Khan's personal camp, in which case they will be the homes of various very important people. Hundreds of yurts are in well-lined rows, and who can camp where is set by law. This is partially to keep rival tribes apart, but if you want to gamble, you know to head to the entertainment quarter. Second, the party will be staggered by the smell. Ethengarians are not the most sanitary people by the standards of most other nations. They don't have a word for plumbing in their language. To clean themselves, they lather up with animal fat to smother any parasites, and facilities in the court consist of multiple open-air latrines. The fact that thousands of animals drop landmines all over the fields doesn't do the local aroma any favors. For the locals, they've long adapted to the overwhelming smell, but for newcomers, the sight of them retching uncontrollably as they get into the camp proper is a source of entertainment for the Ethengarians. Even if the party can avoid dry heaving at the concept of 24-hour lard underarm protection, they will be the source of much curiosity from the locals. The court is not a tourist attraction. Any outsider without permission is held until the Great Khan decides what to do with them. If they have permission to visit, they will have an engraved golden tablet which explains precisely why they were invited. There is no taking a tablet from a merchant and impersonating them, unless you have a spare caravan to take along with you. Outsiders are taken straight to a pavilion tent set up to hold them. Okay, less of a pavilion and more of a palisade. That's locked from the outside, the side that you are on the opposite part of. When you get to be the Golden Khan, you have certain benefits and perks with the job, one of which is you don't get rained on. Even in a howling gale, there's at least one Hakuman whose only job is to make the weather pleasant. So when everyone else is in chest-deep snow, Mowgli Khan is sitting around in a climate-controlled pavilion where he doesn't even have to worry about getting his boots muddy. Nice gig if you can get it. Well, you've gotten into the court of the Golden Khan, and they didn't drag you behind their horses to welcome you to their seat of government. What's there to do? Well, they've got games, merchants, armorers, representatives from all the major tribes, and lots of food to eat. But you're probably going to want to meet with Mowgli Khan. Fair warning, he's a busy man, and if you didn't make an appointment, you might have to wait a while to get some face time. Unless you try to force the issue, in which case you can wave at him as he has you dragged around his tent at high speed behind his best Keshaks for his amusement. While he often has a problem taking a break from work, he does try to spend quality time with his grandchildren. He loves playing games with them, for example, like playing guess which one of that annoying guy's limbs is going to come off first. The Outsiders' compound is well maintained and relatively clean by Ethengar standards. Sure, they used to use Outsiders as target practice before the rise of the Golden Khan, but they can still change with the times. The yurts inside the compound are clean, warm, and furnished with new skins for players to sleep on. Sure, it smells like a tannery, but at least it smells like a high-quality tannery. Remember to be grateful for the hospitality. The first place Outsiders will frequent is usually the entertainment sector. This popular area is home to the steam yurts, where you can pay for an authentic Ethengar sauna. After you've sweated out all the toxins, they will scrub your skin clean with goat hair brushes. It's quite the experience. I highly recommend it. Granted, when you sweat off all the animal fat that you use to stay clean, let's just say the steam yurts can be a little bit pungent. Like make a con saver gag pungent. Not exaggerating, that's literally the rule. If you like to gamble, head to a Carlo the Grotesque, the biggest man at the court of the Golden Khan. Again, I mean that literally. He's morbidly obese and can barely stand. He prides himself on being the largest man in Ethengar and spends most of his time eating. He makes his money by having magically reduced monsters like trolls fight to the death in his yurt, while Ethengar and dwarven mercenaries bet on the results. He's partnered with a wizard who stays behind the scenes, but his business has made him as rich as he is chunky. Other areas of note outside the Great Khan's Pavilion are the yurts devoted to the three patron of mortals of Ethengar, the Dwarven Enclave, and a section given to each of the great clans. Mogulai Khan values the dwarves of Rockholm for their fighting prowess and mechanical skills. He employs hundreds of them as engineers, smiths, and military advisors. While the dwarves in Ethengar think the other unusual, they have developed mutual respect. While a merchant from Darrakin will get stares from everyone in camp no matter how many times he's visited, a dwarf arriving for the first time will be treated like a longtime neighbor. There is a merchant section, one for local Ethengar shopkeepers and the other one for visiting caravans. Anyone can buy from the yurts of the locals to buy animals or homemade goods, but the locals need permission to buy directly from the visiting caravans. The tribal leaders prefer to deal with the caravans directly and then redistribute the goods that they acquire to their tribes as they see fit. The 10,000 Fists of the Khan are also headquartered here. While they may be one of the most hated groups in Glantry, they are considered heroes and patriots in Ethengar. New members are trained here, and their leader has the ear of Mogulai Khan. Visitors are not allowed to get anywhere near their compound, as they are wary of Glantrian spies. If you want to join them or spread their teachings, you have to prove yourself in the field first. They look for recruits outside the court, and they don't take walk-ons. If anybody is considering a bit of larceny, fair warning. The court is one of the best defended locations in all of Mystara. Both groups of the Khan's bodyguards are headquartered here. The silver and gold dragons are expected to keep an eye on all outsiders, and will often pose as merchants or other friendly sorts to get a feel on the characters. After you get past the Braytoks, there are thousands of Kashok warriors here, and they are under no obligation to pretend to like you. After the warriors, there are the Hakamon and the spirit shaman who survey the camp, often invisibly. It's hard to get into the camp unseen. It's even harder to get close to the Golden Khan's enclosure. Sabak, the most powerful Hakamon in Ethengar, likes to fly around invisibly and keep people honest, or charm them into doing something probably suicidal, like sneaking into the female Kishak yurt. Fortunately, after several near drawing and quarterings, the officers have wisened up to his pranks. If someone does something entirely out of character for no apparent reason, they will take the offender to a cleric to have any enchantments removed, which makes it even funnier for Sabak. You can tell you're close to the Golden Pavilion without even looking at it, because of the more exotic sights you will encounter. An animal pen holds his 8 lions, some of his most prized possessions. You will find elephants, peacocks, and other exotic animals near the pavilion. If you want to earn bonus points with Mogulai, he loves rare animals and will pay handsomely to add to his collection. He is a man of taste. His pavilion is always spotless, even by outsider standards. He has a magical shrunken collection of rare trees that form a garden near his tent that he prefers to walk through when he has to think. The Reed Palace is the most famous structure in the court, and it's even more impressive when you learn it's collapsible. Inside holds the Khan's greatest treasures, along with paintings and bits of art. Despite being the government's center, it's generally closed to outsiders. Instead, most court matters dealing with visitors are conducted in a pavilion adjacent to Mogulai's personal yurt. Those yurts are opulent, and getting invited to meet in one is a high honor. The Reed Palace is restricted to the Khan's family and his most trusted advisors. Being allowed entry into the palace is reserved for heads of state or for people who have seriously impressed the Khan. The Khan's pavilion does house 3 treasure yurts, massive tents fabled to contain wealth beyond imagination. They are guarded by dozens of Kishak, at least one Hakamon, and under the watchful eye of an unknown but not small number of Braytaks. Getting into one is nigh impossible. Getting out with any amount of treasure is unheard of. Primarily because it's a trap. The Ethengar value livestock and horses more than gold and gems. Moglai Khan has more cattle and horses than he has members of his own tribe. He does have large amounts of gems and precious metals, but they're held in the decorations around his palace and pavilions. Each of the yurts contains a teleport trap that dumps the thief into a force cage containing a rather nasty critter, usually a golem of some sort. Then the Golden Khan can watch the results, often with his kids and grandkids as they make bets on whether the thief's body or spirit breaks first. It's almost always his body. If the thief can actually win, then Moglai might show mercy and offer the robber a job. Or just leave them to starve in the force cage. Depends on how much the thief entertained him. That's the Court of the Golden Khan. I skimmed over many locations because there's only basic information on places like the rows and rows of Keshak yurts, the various temples to their patron immortals, or the countless animal stalls. If your players want to adventure in Ethengar, there is only one place where you can meet all the clans at the same time, and get invited to meet the Golden Khan, or maybe even get a goat hair brush exfoliation for the low price of only 2 silver tangs. Next week we're looking at Master Torari, the mightiest wizard in Karamikos and a power player in Duke Stefan's palace. Until then, remember, shelter dogs are the best dogs.